Thanks for joining us today. With us is Lynn Hunsaker, the Chief Customer Officer at ClearAction Continuum. How are you today?
Wonderful, Ben, and glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Why don't we start off by having you tell us who you are, what you do, and your path to becoming a CX leader?
Sure. So I'm Lynn Hunsaker. Been with ClearAction Continuum since 2005. And before that, I was head of customer experience company-wide in two different companies. The first one, I was reporting into strategic planning. And I started out as a strategic planning manager, but they made me a voice of the customer manager in 1992. And it was interesting that it was reporting into strategic planning because the whole purpose was collecting customer insights so that we would modify our pricing, our value proposition, the whole, direction of the company accordingly. And I think that's a real lost art these days.
Hmm.
I was head of a company-wide task force to figure out our customer satisfaction methodology because I'd actually been doing customer interviews for about 3, 4 years before that, starting as a college intern in that company. And so we did figure out a company-wide methodology. We're using likely to recommend, even at that time. And then I went on to another company, this one in California in the semiconductor industry. And in that one, I was reporting into the quality department because they wanted to see real change happen through CX. And in fact, the CEO of our largest customer had said we were really arrogant and hard to do business with, and he wanted to take his business elsewhere as soon as maybe a competitor would be first to market with the latest technology. Luckily, we were first to market with the latest technology consistently, but we did hold on to that customer and many others by strengthening the relationships, making real change happen for costs, timeliness, time savings, and so forth for our customers. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that as we go forward. But I became head of corporate quality within a short period and did that for many years and was also director of marketing for a little while. And that was just really an awesome opportunity because in every case, I was working with every single division and every single account team across the company. So I'd like to have that kind of purview of seeing all the moving parts and fitting them together.
Hmm.
That really helped me gain a lot of insight about change management and how the whole business works with this kind of background.
Oh, that's great. Well, since you have all this vast experience, what kind of advice would you give somebody for their first 100 days as a leader of CX?
Well, the first thing to do is definitely not buy a technology because you need to get an appreciation and a grounding for how things are working already. You already have a built-in group of people who are managing customers just by definition. Who's taking the orders? Who's putting the
Hmm.
messages out there? Who's creating the value proposition? Who's deciding who to target? Who's delivering the value? So you have built-in customer management already, and you need to be giving credit where credit's due and making allies with all of those people. Not necessarily that they need to report to you, but you need to be harnessing what they're bringing to the party and also influencing them to be consistent across the end-to-end journey and customer
Hmm.
life cycles. So that's the first thing I want to do is understand who's doing what. Second, I want to understand where the money is going. Costs, what kind of wasted costs are there? What kind of duplicated effort? Uh, what about the various sources of revenue and so forth? So I like to pay attention to that because everybody wants more revenue, but it's not
Hmm.
personal. Budget is personal. So when I can talk intelligently about costs and the opportunity that it brings to potentially more salary increases, profit sharing, hiring, and budget because we're squandering less, well,
Hmm.
then that becomes a hook. So I'm trying to look for things that I can hook into in the culture, in the way that things are already happening, the routines that people do, and what's important to each group. Because as a customer experience leader, it's not necessarily about what you're doing to customers, it's what you're bringing together as an entire company to do for customers.
Hmm.
And that's how you get the value from customers.
That's some really great advice. After those first 100 days, like right now, what is your current CX strategy focus on?
Almost free VOC. You're getting data overload no matter what business you're in. There's more information than you know what to do with. But now we have the technologies such as data mining, artificial intelligence, and so on. You can uh, distill disparate sources and formats of data and parcel it out to be useful and actionable and interesting, stimulating to every single growth effort in your company,
Hmm.
every single cost or efficiency effort, every performance standard for every group, and everyone's strategies. So those are the four areas that I would be looking to influence: strategies, performance standards, cost efforts, and growth efforts. Because if I can do that as a CX leader, everything else is going to be better right the first time from the customer's perspective. You're going to see much higher growth from that.
Do you want to dive in a little bit more into each of those four sections and how you can currently, strategize each of them?
Oh, for sure. So you have people in growth efforts such as entering new markets, creating new products or services, uh, modifying or creating new business models, such as your pricing strategies and rebates, warranties, and things like that. All of that is around business models. You even have mergers and partnerships. All of those are areas where you're trying to grow your business. It makes no sense to do any of those in a silo because the whole point of those efforts is to attract and garner as much of the market for that as possible.
Hmm.
So if you're using customer insights as the basis for every one of those efforts and then frequently checking in with customers as you're creating those feedback loops and the ability to respond quickly, that's what's meant by agile,
Hmm.
right? So agile shouldn't just be something that we're applying to certain, website designs or lobby designs, touch points that customers have. It really should be a mentality and a methodology that everyone uses across the company as they're creating things. It's just customer inspired business management.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. About the cost cutting or efficiency efforts.
Hmm.
It makes no sense to do across the board cuts because you actually need to uh, invest for more value here or there or whatever. And a lot of things are just done fairly blindly or not well informed.
Hmm.
So if you're looking at what is bothering customers, anything that's bothering customers is going to cost you. It costs you in uh, inquiries. It costs you in a lot of silent behaviors that customers have, where they churn or complain, put negativity out there.
Hmm.
And whenever you have that, your marketing and sales budgets have to work harder to make up for the negativity, like longer sales cycles, more proof points,
Hmm.
and so on, um, making up for all the churn that happened. It costs you in escalations and remedies and returns and so on and so on. So that it really becomes kind of an endless cycle of losses when you're doing things that bother customers.
Hmm.
Frankly, most of the things that come out of a dispositioning report from customer service or a real root cause analysis from your win loss or churn studies and such is not all of the blame goes to the touch points. Quite a lot of the contributing factors are from groups like legal, finance, even HR, procurement, and so on. And so it's makes more sense if you're going to be looking for efficiencies to focus on getting the pebbles out of customer shoes,
Hmm.
because that's how you're going to stem the tide of all these costs. And if you look to eradicate the root cause of those things, guess what? Now you're freeing up customers from all of that negativity,
Hmm.
worry, confusion, and so on. You're freeing up your resources. Engineers and others who used to have to troubleshoot are freed up to create patents and other high value things.
Hmm.
So it's really a gift that keeps on giving. Otherwise, it's a sinkhole that keeps on taking.
Hmm.
You wanted me to go through the 4
Yeah,
areas, or?
sure. Yeah, keep going. You're doing great.
Okay. So the third area is performance standards. So, you know, there's no real good thing that comes from this is just how our industry does it, or that's how we've always done it. That's really crazy thinking, because things are always changing in our world.
Hmm.
We have new technologies, changes in the economy, uh, regulatory forces, social forces, economic, yeah, all kinds of things. So it's a moving target, what people expect, and also how well you're performing to those expectations. No such thing as a safe zone.
Hmm.
Now, I say that it doesn't make any sense to do what your industry has always done, because there's no good industry, or there's no really awesome industry. And I base that on observations from the Forrester CX Index as one evidence point, but there could be many others. In the Forrester CX Index, there's excellent, good, okay, and poor. And no industry has crossed the line to excellent. In fact,
Hmm.
no industry has crossed the line to good.
Wow.
All industries are still in the okay or poor area.
Hmm.
Only one company has crossed the line to good. All of the other companies are in the okay or poor.
Hmm.
Okay. And that one company was USAA, and they're barely over. So, as a university instructor, I've taught 25 courses at UC Berkeley Extension, UC Santa Cruz, San Jose State University, and so on. But that would be a C grade, right? I mean, everyone's pretty much at a C grade.
Hmm.
Only one company has hit a B grade, and nobody's had an A grade. That makes no sense to
Hmm.
operate that way. So we're really in the baby phase of customer experience maturity. Definitely. We should be giving ourselves credit for all the progress that's being made. But again, it's a moving target. We're not moving fast enough. In fact, that I love that Forrester CX Index, because it's only 6 questions and they're not that hard.
Hmm.
They're pretty basic things. So I think that, we need to be going about it with these root cause things will make all the difference in breaking that ceiling. But see, if you mine the comments of customers and look for the things that are causing emotion negatively, emotion happily. Those will be your moments of truth, as well as indicators of how performance needs to change.
Hmm.
We need to have more of the good and less of the bad. So we should be using those technologies to tell us this, and then take it back to every single group: safety department, facilities department, HR department. Every single department can have better guidelines of what good means. See, even we don't know for our overall customers in marketing. And so I don't think we really know what good experience means in a lot of cases, because we're looking too much at tasks to be done. We're looking too much at scenarios, and not enough at the ultimate reason why people are going out of their way to get something from us in the first place.
Hmm.
Because people will rather not buy anything if they don't need to buy something.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Right? So if you're looking at that ultimate aim that the customer has for why they are pursuing your type of solution in the first place, why they are going with your brand instead of a different brand. Say, for example, my mom goes with the brand that makes her feel safest. She is risk averse. She doesn't want risk. Me, I'm a little more willing to take some risk, but I don't want to take time with stuff. Okay? So for her, if she's feeling like something's a bit risky, she's getting loose in the saddle. She's thinking about a different brand.
Mm-hmm.
For me, things that are taking a bunch of my time, that's what's happening to me. I want to be looking somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the ultimate aim. This is the higher reason why we're hiring your thing to do something for us. That's what a job to be done is. We're
Mm-hmm.
getting confused with tasks to be done. Now, when you identify 2 to 4 of those overall themes for your brand, it's usually no more than that. It keeps it simple
Mm-hmm.
for the safety group, the legal group, the facilities group, the finance group, every single group, including accounting and all the touch points, including engineering and all the touch points, to keep those 2 or 3 themes as their watchword. That's a performance standard.
Mm-hmm.
Are we helping or hurting risk? Are we helping or hurting timeliness? Okay, and so on, whatever the case may be for your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And further, when you do the root cause analysis of these prevalent issues coming into service and so forth, you're able to help people see what it means to do a good job. They didn't know that they're throwing things over the fence to service
Mm-hmm.
because their thing wasn't timely, it wasn't connected, it wasn't quite the quality in whatever aspect. So this communication to people for their performance standards makes all the difference in reducing those costs, in making more budget available for everybody, and also making your brand more magnetically attractive to customers.
Mm-hmm.
So the fourth area was efficiency. Wait, did I talk about efficiency
No,
yet?
not yet.
Strategies. The fourth
Sure.
area
Oh
is
yeah, sure.
strategies. And that is where you want to take a look at customers' opinions of your opportunities and threats in the market,
Mm-hmm.
customers' opinions of your strengths and weaknesses. Now, it sounds like I'm saying go do a survey. I'm not. I'm saying make use of the almost free VOC you have, which includes all of the digital presence in your ERP, your CRM, your whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It includes all the stuff that you just have. But whatever you have, be mining that to look for what are customers' impressions of where you're uh, well suited for opportunities, or where you're not well suited for threats on the outside, and then on the inside, strengths and weaknesses. Now, if every group was to do that from the corporate first, and then giving some flavor of that to everybody else, now you're getting everybody aligned, focusing on the same things. First of all, that overall job to be done. Second, seeing the positioning of our company from the customer's eyes. Now, add to that your own wisdom. Right now and always, we've been doing it backwards, right? I think our opportunities are this. I think our strengths and weaknesses are that. Oh, and by the way, some customer anecdotes are this and that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, right? Uh, you know, common sense business management, this surely should be in the 101 course in MBA schools. See what's making your customers' world happier,
Mm-hmm.
more successful, all of that, and use that as the basis, and then get everybody aligned on those strategies instead of having willy-nilly everyone's different ideas. It's no wonder we have a lot of waste and employee anxiety these
And
days.
back to the efficiencies, right? I really love that answer. I love how you look at the 4 pillars. And with these, how do you measure success of a program?
Well, measuring success ultimately is how much do your investors get, right? Earnings per share. And well, that's around lifetime value. If you're driving lifetime value, then you're seeking a balance between the short term and the long term. You're seeking a balance between revenue gains and cost to get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas nowadays, we're only looking at revenue. A lot of times we're doing a lot of crazy things to get there just to make the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Come what may, going to make those numbers and then pay for it later.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It's really hard to keep things on an upward trajectory that way. And therefore, we have to make a lot of sacrifices that are unfortunate. And the biggest sacrifice they see we're making since the pandemic is less value for customers.
Mm-hmm.
That is a crazy thing because investors won't stand for lower earnings or revenue month by month or quarter by quarter. They may tolerate it once or twice in a blue moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not regularly. Employees won't stand for salary static or reduced anytime.
Mm-hmm.
They'll look elsewhere. And yet, with customers, what have we done? Reduced value since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Lower quality, smaller sizes,
Mm-hmm.
higher prices. And sure, there are cost of living increases. But frankly, a lot of this is just being thrown up over the fence to defenseless customers who have no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
They have to live with it. And so we figure we can get by with that.
Yep.
But also there's some companies doing it just because they can. So I think I've gotten off target for your question.
Well, you measured success, and I think it comes down to the money, right? The dollars and cents, keeping your investors happy. And you dove right into my next question. I think you dabbled on it, but I really want you to nail it on the head. What pain points do you have when you're leading a CX team?
Yeah. So you want to get people's attention, right? That's the hardest thing because as big as your CX team may be, 1,000 people, 20,000 people, for example, customer service in some companies is more bigger than a small town in some cases. There's no way that whatever size of CS or CX team you have can guarantee excellent customer experience because the customer experience is being affected by the collective decisions and handoffs of everybody. And that's why I'm bringing up procurement and legal and facilities and safety in places that you usually don't think of or talk about at all in CX. Because in fact, what a customer experiences is the combination of all of that.
Absolutely.
Right? And they don't separate that out. You go to a restaurant and they have, messy bathroom or horrible parking lot or something, and they have wonderful food. Well, it taints the whole experience.
Absolutely.
To one degree or another. And you can't just parcel it out like, well, we've done studies and that's not a key driver, so we don't care about it.
Yeah.
Well, you have to use some common sense too. I mean, why would you want to put up with that? Why? I thought we were supposed to be increasingly raising the bar, attractiveness and quality of life for our children and their children and so forth. Well, so I would like to talk about what are the missed opportunities, because that will get managers' attention, especially if I show data in terms of percentages. When I show percentages, it gives them a sense of the size of business at risk or at opportunity. And if I marry up those percentages with money, how much cost does this represent? How much revenue does this represent of this group of customers or this group of issues or whatever? And it doesn't even have to be total. I don't have to be accurate. I just need to use whatever figures I have readily accessible and then label that as such. I know this is incomplete data, but it's the tip of the iceberg, and look how big this is. You can kind of fill in the gaps. So I got really comfortable doing that when I was in strategic planning, doing competitor analyses, acquisition analyses, and you're presenting this to the board or the other senior leaders, and you don't have complete data, but you have to show something. And in fact, everyone does that. Almost anyone in the whole company does not have 100% complete data for the things that they're making decisions on. So in CX, you need to make sure that you have data that is truth, meaning not biased.
Yep.
Right? So frankly, we do have tremendous amount of biasing of data these
Hmm.
days. With all of the advantages we have technologically, we're creating a tremendous amount of bias for no reason. It's just a really expensive public relations tactic that
Hmm.
people are doing. You want to know truth. Now, the next thing that ties it back to what I kind of short-circuited earlier is I want to focus people not on how much revenue they're generating. I want to focus people on making a difference for customers. I want to focus them on what's statistically connected to revenue via the key drivers, via the 80-20 rule on those key drivers. What's the 80% that's going to knock it out of existence for the most part? And then the 5 whys. So getting to the root cause of the 80-20 rule, right? So when you focus people on the root cause of what they're doing that is having a domino effect of negativity to customers, like this is late, this isn't timely, this isn't a good quality, this has defects or whatever, from the customer's viewpoint, you're able to mistake proof those things when you're focusing people on those root causes in their
Hmm.
workflows. So I like to put the metrics that we focus on in those mistake proofing efforts. How are you tracking the fact that this is mistake proofing? Something that you can track internally, like you have some double checking instead of just throwing stuff over. There's some way to double check before it leaves a certain point.
Hmm.
Or there's some way of having a readiness factor at a certain point so that at that point, whatever you're measuring, if that passes a green light, well, then you can pretty much predict everything going forward, all the consequences that customers experience, all the things that customers will feel about that, the ways that they're going to behave. You can predict it from just that one point
Hmm.
of mistake proofing. I call that a customer critical factor because nobody else is calling it something.
Yeah, I like that. It's catchy.
But we did this. So we did this. Um, when we had that very unhappy customer who said he wanted to take his business elsewhere, it was a very big account.
Hmm.
We couldn't afford that. So I went to every single account team in the world that we had, a lot of different countries, and every single line of business, and did a 1-day workshop. So here I was cutting the annual customer relationship survey data for them. So this was their data. They owned it. They couldn't do finger pointing. And I did the key driver analysis for them so I could tell them these are your top 2 key drivers. And here is the Pareto chart of customer comments. So we can take the top 80% and do the 5 whys analysis. So you have in this workshop cross-functional representatives who can, because of their diversity and business savvy, zero in within 2 hours to the true root cause through putting the sticky notes on the wall for why are we allowing customers to have this symptom?
Hmm.
Why are we allowing that? Why are we allowing that? Why are we allowing that? Now you're figuring out what part of your workflow needs to have that focus for mistake proofing. Create the action plan that addresses that mistake proofing and track something about the mistake proofing. For example, there was a group that had tremendous growth in their customers, that certain region. And so they had field service people being hired right and left and put out to the customer sites, and customers were complaining loudly.
Hmm.
Your people are causing more trouble than they're solving. They're really
Hmm.
incompetent. And so doing this exercise, they decided they needed to do better screening and onboarding in the first place, job shadowing, mentoring, training, making sure that people are certified to level 1, level 2, level
Hmm.
3. So they had something like, 25 or 30% certified to the level 3 at the beginning. And they wanted to have a stretch goal within, say, 10 months to have 90% at level 3 or something like this, kind of crazy
Hmm.
stretch goal. But they saw the value in it because if they could do that, they would not only be meeting the customer's expectations, but they would be better than the competitors. and be the clear first choice, because we knew that these accounts were going to continue to grow.
Hmm.
So we couldn't just go with like the bare minimum. But this is the type of thing that every single group was doing, and they chose their own areas to focus on based on what did the data
Hmm.
say, right? The data said this is the root cause, and the collective wisdom of the diverse business savvy people zeroed in on that, and it was pretty darn accurate.
It's awesome.
So when we went back to headquarters, we had the single page strategy signed by every general manager for these workshops, 2 strategies for every group. So I think it was 40 or 50 groups that first year. This meant we had 80 to 100 action plans happening at the same time across our company in that one year. Yes, we repeated it the next year. The third year, they said, hey, we've got the hang of
Hmm.
this. We have our own champions here. We want to facilitate it ourselves. You don't need to come. But we collected those single page strategies and put them in a bound book for the senior leadership team members. And we gave a quarterly update to the senior leadership members before they were talking to the investor community every quarter, right? So they had the financial data, the operational data, and the customer experience data. I'm not talking about just survey scores. Yeah, that was there. But most importantly, what are we doing about it?
Hmm.
And then the bonuses were based on what are you doing about it? Maybe a small percentage on a survey score, but mostly are you making change happen for customers? Because that's where we're freeing up our own resources. We're strengthening trust and relationships, and we're also generating more revenue because our customers are more productive and more inclined to put more of their business with us.
That makes a lot of sense. You talked about giving the senior leadership team this billfold. I want to talk about that a little bit more. Like, how do you get the C-suite to buy in to what you're trying to do?
Well, initially, the C suite in this case didn't like the first survey results at all. They were reading the customer comments at an offsite at Pebble Beach, interestingly.
Beautiful.
And all the morning they were just thinking, well, this can't be right. They're so negative. So we were twice as big as our next competitor. Okay. What day was this? What serial number are they talking about? Who did these interviews? These comments are just unbelievable. Well, the VP of CX at that time stood up and held the book in front of them and said, think of this as a mirror. You're going about your day. You've got something in your teeth, your hair sticking up. It doesn't bother you. You're just going about your day. The customer's seeing that and like, oh my gosh, this guy, right? So think about this as a mirror. And remember what our chairman always says: good news is no news. No news is bad news. And bad news is good
Hmm.
news. So luckily, after lunch, they thought about our culture. So just as I mentioned, what you should do in your first 100 days, think about your culture. What works? What doesn't for the mentality that you guys have? Because culture is nothing more than the group's way of thinking and
Hmm.
doing, what gets people ahead or not. So that's how they came up with this plan to do these one-day workshops everywhere, giving everyone their own cut of the data to minimize finger pointing, um, telling them the whole plan that every quarter we're going to be collecting the root cause improvement progress, single page strategies, and that's what their bonus is going to be based on.
Well, that worked, and I bet they paid
Okay.
attention, especially when you allocate the funds to their pay. That's got to be super
Yeah. Well, the
effective.
senior leaders, they could see the potential, like the consequences of doing
Hmm.
nothing. So,
Yeah, lost opportunity cost.
that's what I would do if I were going into a different situation where the customer didn't say
Hmm.
that, is I would just be creating that picture so that they were seeing, look, we can continue to be on this constant treadmill of just trying to meet our quotas, hit the numbers at whatever cost, and throwing things down the road, kicking the can um, down the road. But we could be smarter,
Hmm.
and look how much more we could
Hmm.
have because of being smarter. So again, it's not just about the revenue or making the numbers, but it's about something more personal. more salary increase, more profit sharing, more budget, more hiring to help carry the
Hmm.
workload.
That makes a ton of sense. Another question I have for you, it's a bit of a change of subject, but I was just wondering, what do you think the future of customer experience is?
Hmm. Well, I think that it could go either way with being more tactical or being more strategic. Because what I see is a trend, especially since 2020, of being more tactical because people's jobs were kind of threatened
Hmm.
or uncertain. And they're wanting to have like a more sure path, an easier way of showing the value and so forth. So customer success is one of those paths. Customer experience is having a possibility of going extinct, as I've been discussing it, going extinct in favor of
Hmm.
CS, customer service and customer success being the be all end all there, because it's something that you can more easily quantify and wrap your head around. Whereas what I've been talking about, CX, is influencing the whole company to be more aligned with customers. So you're just managing
Hmm.
smarter, stopping doing the things that people don't appreciate that are costing
Hmm.
you, and having more less chaos and more wherewithal to be more creative, more innovative, more value creating everywhere, not just the touch points, but
Hmm.
everywhere, right? So that to me is what CX is. And that's the second way that it could go because we have now AI and so many other opportunities to be making use of the overload of
Hmm.
data. We could be using it that way. So, um, on one side, I'm a little bit scared because I think that making CX become CS, that's just kind of
Yeah.
weird. Here's why. Let me if I
All
may
right.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
elaborate for a
Get on your
second.
soapbox. That's what we're here for.
Well, 50 or 60 years ago, maybe a little longer, we didn't have HR. We had personnel relations. We didn't have IT. We had data processing. Okay. Those were tactical. They were taking care of issues, right? With the data processing, or it was more, it was proactive as well as addressing backlogs and things like that. Personnel, mostly, like, there's problematic employees that just don't do their work or have some issues, or we need to be compliant with the government. Okay, in either case. Nowadays, if you have a CHRO or a CIO, their job is much more holistic, much more uh, addressing the whole
Hmm.
company. And in fact, some interesting things about what HR and IT do is they require personal responsibility of every single employee to do HR things and to do data things, right? If you give me a laptop or you give me access to databases in the company, I have personal responsibility as an employee and as a manager for the responsible use of that and abiding by certain things and also demonstrating my
Hmm.
compliance. If I'm a manager, I have to do some HR stuff like train my train my employees for certain things, give them performance reviews. I would rather say, well, like HR, you do that stuff to give my people their performance
Hmm.
reviews. Well, it doesn't work that way. Well, that's how we need to be thinking of CX. It doesn't really work to just be trying to retain customers and iron out the sloppy things or the missed things from your minimally viable
Hmm.
product that you put out to market. It doesn't really work to just work with the backlog of things that frustrated customers as your customer experience strategy. That's customer success and customer service,
Hmm.
respectively. Those are necessary and value adding for sure, but we need to be thinking bigger, more holistically about all the stuff I've been talking about up
Yeah.
till now as the real purpose of a
Hmm.
CCO, Chief Customer Officer, not just about the touch points, but bringing that wisdom, customer experience inspired strategies, performance standards, efficiencies, and growth
Hmm.
efforts.
That makes a ton of sense. Well, this is my last question for you. How can we learn more about you and follow your career?
Yeah, well, my website is called ClearAction.com because if you can see clearly, get out of analysis paralysis, and really focus on acting on the root causes, well, you're home free. So ClearAction.com. And I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So I love to connect with people on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. And I'm the number one author at
Oh,
customerthink.com.
awesome. Good to know. I know I connected with you on LinkedIn, so I can say that one definitely works. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know I learned a lot, and I bet our audience will. Thank you so much.